Today we're going to talk a little bit about the experiment badge for the Beaver section. This is a very simplistic badge. As you can see, there's only really two requirements here. So I'm going to dive right in, and then once you've covered them out, I will tell you a little bit about the different badge links you can potentially make between the experiments activity badge and other badges. Number one here is do 3 experiments. Talk to your leader about trying these before you try them, what you think might happen. And here are some examples with magnets, sort of making ketchup packets sink or not sink, volcano eruptions as being baking soda and vinegar, things like that, and growing cress. It's actually a very interesting one here. And the sort of next requirement after you've done 3 of these is obviously once you've done them, tell other beavers what you saw and discovered and try and explain why it happened. This obviously being things like the rough chemical reactions and things like that of why it occurred. Um, this is actually quite an interesting one. Essentially, if we go through this step by step, I would point out that while it might come to mind sort of this is more difficult to run. I would say actually, if you run this as one night and do 3 experiments, 3 different tables or something, the beavers can go to. That'll be a very easy way to run this, and then right at the very end, actually, as sort of the debrief during flag break or whatever the case might be, you could have them have a little discussion, and that would immediately cover out the experiment badge quite easily. There are plenty of examples here, but you can probably Google online or look up online about similar kid-friendly experiments to look into. Um, a couple of things come to mind here, really. If you do something in relation to growing cress, as it says here, it's quite an interesting one that they count that as an experiment. But there is actually a gardener badge, activity badge for beavers, which is to do with actually looking after gardens or allotments and things like that and growing different plants. So if you grow cress along with 2 other similar plants that grow at some rapid pace as well, that would count actually for a good part of the gardener activity badge, which is worth mentioning. Additionally, if we think a little bit about how this can link to something like the space activity badge, the space activity badge doesn't necessarily say things about sort of practical experiments. It's more to do with looking at the night sky. However, I would say that if you're clever about things, there are definitely experiments you can do um, that would count, I'd say, towards the space activity badge too. And obviously, as with any badge requirement, leaders can bend the rules a little bit to their discretion as long as it's obviously keeping within the spirit of the badge. So I'd say if you did something along the lines of sort of um, seeing a satellite or something like that going across the sky, which you can find on different star maps online, and you sort of did a timer and you figured out sort of how long it took to cross the sky. And satellites move very quickly for you, those who don't know that, especially ones that are closer to the Earth. You could do some very quick sort of calculations about how fast you think that's going and things like this. So there might be a way to link this into space somehow. Additionally, if you did something along the lines of a gravity diagram, perhaps, which is obviously if you stretch a piece of cloth out over a bowl and drop a little sort of marble into the center of it, you can see how the marble distorts the cloth. That's an example of gravity, and you can put other items in there and see how they interact and spin around the central marble. Might be one way to cover out an experiment here and also cover out one of the requirements of the space activity badge, which is to make a model of the solar system or a similar kind of model. And I'd say that would certainly count towards both of these at the same time. You could actually also, if the experiment includes fire in some way, obviously your own discretion on that with beavers around fire and things, but you could actually then take the opportunity to um, talk to them about the dangers of such things and the dangers of these different experiments, for example, and that would count towards the safety activity badge for the beavers too. So that's certainly another link there. There's not too much else that you would really want to touch upon in terms of other badges. There is obviously some links between science and perhaps the faith activity badge, but it's up to you whether you want to really touch upon that at all. especially at their younger sort of age. However, moving on to the Chief Scouts Bronze Award, if we're looking at things like the My Skills Challenge Award, as part of that, learning new skills would obviously count towards this. So if you do something very practical as an experiment that can link towards a practical skill, that might be one way to cover off a part of the My Skills Challenge Award at the same time. Additionally, if you do something along the lines of inventing a machine as part of the experiment, that's actually specifically one of the requirements for the My Skills Challenge Award. So if you can actually build into this night with the experiment activity badge some kind of machine invention type thing, of like maybe taking one of the principles from the experiments and making something practical out of it. Perhaps, just an example here, a volcano eruption. If you then had a platform and sort of did the reaction inside some kind of enclosed chamber, it would obviously push the platform up, and that would be a machine that obviously lifts something quite like a lift or an escalator. That would be a very easy one to do, and obviously if you do that, that would count towards the My Skills Challenge Award, which goes towards the Chief Scouts Bronze Award. Other than that, if you can find a way to run the experiments in groups, that counts towards, of course, a Teamwork Challenge Award. So making sure that one person is sort of chosen to be the leader of that activity in a particular group, and then participate and complete that activity together, that would count towards it. Other than that, there may be ways to spin these experiments in some kind of international light. Perhaps if you do something and mention the Super Collider in CERN, that would be perhaps something related to Switzerland, and you could perhaps touch something on the My World Challenge Award with that as well. Other than that, there's not too much else that I can really give you advice on, unless you can find some way to mix an experiment with sort of animal welfare, which may touch on the My Outdoor Challenge Award as well. But if you're clever enough with this, as I say, you can certainly add a whole bunch of different badges into this. And I hope you found this video interesting and useful. So have a great night. Thank you. Bye bye.